everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, January 13th, 2022. Yes, I said 2022. And this is episode 205. My name is Carol. My Ravelry name is Knits and Pearls, and I live in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, just a little ways east of Vancouver. It has been almost a month since my last regular episode, and I am rusty at this whole podcasting thing. So yesterday it took me hours to record an episode. I had to do certain segments over and over and over again. And then when I finally got everything transferred from my phone to my computer, one of the biggest files was corrupted, or it wasn't working. I think what happened is that my phone went off in the middle of the transfer, and then when I tried to do it again, it wasn't working. So I'm here today to record the whole episode all over again. I think in some ways that's better because yesterday's was really bad. There's a few things that are better today. The lighting, for one. We have just come off of a couple of days of heavy rain and this weird, eerie snow fog. We still have quite a bit of snow on the ground, and combined with the moisture and the rain, it was just a very weird light. Also, I've done this a few times now, so I feel like maybe I know better what I want to actually say, and may actually be able to say it better than I did yesterday. Also, a couple of projects have had a little more love, and so there's a little bit more of them to enjoy. I think the only thing that's not as good today is my hair. I am getting it trimmed this weekend, but do you know what it's like when you get close to that point where you need a trim, that you have lots of bad hair days? I'm kind of in that phase, except yesterday was a really good hair day, and I just can't recreate it. So, oh well, that's not the worst thing in the world, but I wish I had yesterday's hair and today's lighting. I'm also wearing something different because I had to throw the t-shirt I was wearing in the wash, and I had it on with one of my other hand knit sweaters, but I don't have another top that goes with it. So I guess I might as well mention today what I'm wearing, or right now I should say. This is my second Sew Faded by Andrea Mowry. I call it my Another Sew Faded. This was knit in 3 colors of hedgehog fibers sock yarn, and I knit it between January and March of 2019. So I will link this in the show notes if you want to know more about it. I can't remember any of the colorway names. Maybe I'll stand up so you can see that it is indeed a fade. There, the sleeve shows that faded area really well. I really like this sweater. I like the way it fits. I like the way it's constructed. And I suspect I will knit this one again, or at least use it as a basis for another fingering weight sweater in the future, just because I do like how it fits so well. I can't remember if the pattern had waist shaping written into it, or if I added my own, but I did have waist shaping in it. So, not only is this the first episode of 2022, it's also the first episode of my 6th year of podcasting. Way back on January 6th, 2017, I sat down with my old iPad propped against who knows what, and recorded my first episode. And I know some of you have been with me right from the beginning, so thank you for sticking by. I have a hard time going back and watching some of those early episodes whenever I kind of need to go back and get a little nugget of information off of them. And I know some of you have gone right, even though you're more recent viewers, have gone back and started watching them from the beginning. So I feel like things have improved a lot since then, but hopefully you enjoy the old episodes too. I know I have done the same with some podcasts because I feel like it gives me a better sense of who the person is and what their knitting journey has been like. What else was I gonna say? Oh, I'm recording on a new camera, or it's actually a new phone. Just before Christmas, I got a new phone, and I also got a new phone slash tablet slash camera holder stand. And I got to play with it a little bit during Vlogmas, but this is the first regular episode, or well, it's actually the second time I've filmed a regular episode on it. I'm hoping to not have the same trouble with the files today as yesterday, but I do think overall it gives a better picture and better sound quality. And I'm also hoping that with this new setup that I'll be able to maybe do some tutorials in the future, because I'll have a way of being able to have my camera angled in the proper way to, you know, capture my hand movements while I'm knitting something or something of that nature. All in all, I think it'll be a really good setup going forward. So hopefully that's true. Let me think. Okay, so before I get into all of my recent projects, I just wanted to talk briefly about the new make-along that is taking place in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group. So I was so pleased with the positive reception to the idea of having a make-along with the theme of using up stash, and it's been really exciting to see how many people are already participating. So I won't go into great detail. I did a few weeks ago, I recorded a video in which I laid out the inspiration for this make-along and went through various rules and guidelines. So I will link it in the down bar and also up here. And so you feel free to go and watch that. But I have added, or tweaked, I should say, a few rules and guidelines since then. So I just thought I'd mention them briefly. So for those of you who might be new and maybe don't even have a clue what I'm talking about, I've declared 2022 the year of the stash. And I am planning to shop more from my stash this year and try and resist the urge to buy the new and shiny. And so I've created this make-along, and it has two components. One is a general year of the stash chatter thread in which you are invited and encouraged to share your stash projects. And for the sake of this make-along, stash is any yarn, fiber, or patterns that you acquired prior to 2022, and I invite you to knit, crochet, weave, or spin with your stash. Now, because I really like my make-alongs to be as inclusive as possible, I included patterns in the stash because I heard back from some of you that said, I don't really have a stash. So I figured if you had a stash of patterns, then you could pair them with new yarn and also take part in this make-along. So since I uploaded the video, I've just tweaked a couple things. The main one for this is I just want to let you know that, well, for one thing, whips are totally okay because that's old yarn. I don't care if you're 90% finished with your project or 1% finished with your project. Feel free to talk about your works in progress. The other thing I wanted to say is that your project has to be at least 50% stash. I wanted there to be some allowance for, say, adding a new mini into a pair of socks you're knitting from an old, a stashed skein. Or what if you run out of yarn? I want you to be able to put a new skein of yarn into your project and not feel like it disqualifies it. Maybe you have this beautiful skein of stash yarn, but the best thing to pair it with is this brand new skein of another yarn. That's okay as long as you're using at least half of stash. Same with spinning. So maybe you have a old braid of fiber and you want to ply it together with a new braid of fiber. Go for it. See if I just want to see if I've got everything else that I wanted to talk about that portion of the make along. I think so. We already have one prize on offer for that make along for January, and it is a project bag that is being donated by Ashley of Monkey and Mouse. She has a shop on Instagram, and I've linked it in the post 2 of the Year of the Stash thread, and she is offering up one of her in-stock bags. So go ahead and check out her Instagram link, and if you're interested in purchasing something, you can go ahead and get a hold of Ashley before that time. So thanks again, Ashley, for offering to sponsor this. I also have oh shoot, I meant to bring something in. I have a couple of other people who have either sent prizes or have offered to donate prizes. I'll talk about them more on a future episode, since I forgot to bring in one of the things I was going to show you. So the other component of the Year of the Stash make along is the Personal Sock Yarn Club. So this is your opportunity to knit up to 12 pairs of socks from stashed yarn over the course of the coming year. So it is a monthly knit along. You have from between it's a monthly knit along, but you have 2 months to knit your socks. So for instance, for January, you have to cast on your socks sometime between January 1st and January 31st. And then you have up until the end of February to knit your pair of socks. For the sake of this knit along, you can knit either fingering weight or DK weight sock yarn, and you can make shorty socks, because I know not everyone likes their legs of their socks to be 7 to 8 inches the way I do. So shorties are okay, but it does have to be an adult pair of socks. So there are no whips allowed for this part of the make along, and this the Personal Sock Yarn Club is a little bit more structured than the main make along thread. There are 2 threads for it. One is a chatter thread and one is an FO thread. So what I would like you to do is create a cast on post for your monthly pair of socks. By the way, there's only 1 pair allowed per month per person. Feel free to knit as many socks as you like, but only 1 pair is eligible for the Personal Sock Yarn Club. So create a cast on post that, excuse me, my nose is dripping. This colder weather has really done a number on my sinuses. Always have to have a Kleenex by me these days. Anyway, yeah, so create a cast on post that says when you cast on your socks, what yarn you used, which pattern if it's applicable, and include a photo of your sock in progress or socks in progress. One at a time is fine. I don't mean you have to cast on both at once, but your sock in progress and a link to your project page. And then once you're finished, include the same information in your FO post, but also the date that you finished your sock. I structured this part of the make along a little bit on the Sock Knitters Anonymous knit alongs that I used to take part in a number of years ago. And I know it's a little bit more rigid or more structured, but it's just an easier way for me to monitor that the socks that are being entered are indeed brand new cast-ons and not something that, you know, you brought forward from last year. And it's also just an easy way for people to click through on your photo and be able to see all your project information in one place. It was remiss of me not to realize that not everyone was familiar with how to link their project page or how to link it through a photo. But I have included some like a little tutorial post on several ways that you can link your project page. And I also opened up a thread that you can feel free to go in and just play around with different features on Ravelry for forum posts. So you can play around with how to post a photo or link a project. If you want, you can just play around with it and then delete those posts when you're done, or you can leave them up. It doesn't matter. The thread doesn't mean anything. It's just a way of having a place to play, because I know when I was kind of writing up the tutorials for how to link project pages, I was doing mock posts in other threads, but then I never actually posted them. But I had to do it in order to kind of reacquaint myself with how to do it, and it would have been helpful just to have a thread that I could do it, and it, you know, wouldn't mean anything. So feel free to make use of that any way you like. Oh yes, before I forget, a couple of other things. You must be a member of the group, of the Ravelry group, to participate and be eligible for a prize. And some people asked about hashtags, and so in the post number 1 on each of the threads are the hashtags or Ravelry tags for your projects if you want to use them, but you don't have to use them. I would recommend, if you are interested in taking part in the make along, that you go ahead and read post number 1 in both of the main make along threads, the Personal Sock Yarn Club and the Year of the Stash, and just familiarize yourself with the various rules and guidelines, because as I said, I have tweaked them a little bit since I posted the video. Some of it was based on questions I had about it. Some were things that I kind of worked out in my mind as I went. I do like my make-alongs to be as casual and inclusive as possible, but having said that, I do think there needs to be some degree of structure in order to make it fair for everyone. So yeah, I'm just so excited to see so many people taking part in it already, and feel free to jump in anytime. With the Personal Sock Yarn Club, what I personally did was I took 12 skeins of yarn out of my stash, and I decided which skein I wanted to knit in each month. I was going to get my husband just to put them randomly into brown paper bags and staple them up, but then I decided that I wanted to knit seasonal yarns at the appropriate time. So for instance, I have a skein of green yarn to knit in March for St. Patrick's Day, and in the end of the year I've got some Christmassy yarns. Having said that, there are a bunch that I don't even remember. I don't even remember what February's yarn is. So it'll be a lot of fun come February 1st to open up that brown paper bag and be surprised at what I'm going to be knitting that month. You can do it that way. You can participate in 3 months. You can participate in 6 months. You can choose your stash yarn as you go. You can have your 12 skeins or 3 skeins or 6 skeins set aside ahead of time. A lot of you have done that. You've either put them into bags you can't see through, like a paper bag, or a lot of you have put them into project bags, which I think is a really cool idea. So yeah, have fun with it. That's the main goal of the make along, is just to work our way through some stash and to have some companionship and to have some fun. All right, let's get into my knitting and crafting. I actually have several finished projects to share with you, and I would hope so, considering it's been almost a month since my last regular episode. I have a couple of new works in progress and one that you have seen, but I've made some progress on it, as the name implies. And I also have some quilting / sewing to share with you. I was sewing earlier this week. Okay, let's get into it. So this, the first two are finished projects from last year. That seems so weird to say. First up are my Cozy Mountain Christmas socks. I knit these socks during the month of December, and I don't remember exactly what date I finished them, but it was before Christmas because I wore these on Boxing Day. The yarn is Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It is the Mountain Tweed BFL base in the Cozy Mountain Christmas colorway. And then I used some of her, I think it's just plain vanilla or vanilla, a mini out of the Mountain Tweed base for the heels. So it's a 64 stitch top down sock, 2mm needles, traditional heel flap and gusset, and rounded toe. So I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can see. One thing with recording on my phone is the lens is in a different place. I have to remember to look down here instead of up there and to bring things towards that lens. So there you see that beautiful tweed in there. I love this base. So cozy feeling. A little bit, the yarn itself doesn't feel rustic, but I like that rusticy kind of look. So yeah, really happy with these. I have worn them once for sure, maybe, no, I think I've only just worn them the one time. And now I'm gonna tuck them away with my other Christmas and winter socks. And then they'll be, you know, brand new all over again when I pull them out next December. I kind of hate to tuck them away, but I have lots of socks, so definitely no shortage there. So loved those. Another project that I finished before Christmas is this pair of felted slippers for my husband. It was the only thing he asked for Christmas. It's not the only thing he got, but it's the only thing he really expressed a desire for, and that's because his old pair was getting holes in it. So this is a pattern from Fiber Trends. It is their family classic felt slippers, and I knit it out of some leftover Peyton's classic wool that I had in my big bag of non-superwash worsted weight wool. So I did the main, as you can see, the main part in this black, and then I just decided to mix it up and do the cuffs in this charcoal color. I didn't write down the color names or numbers of the yarn, and I don't have a specific pattern or a project page for this. I just have one project page where I just call felted slippers, and I just have them all in there. So I haven't even taken a photo of these. I'm not planning to. You can see they've already been worn, and which is good. And it was so funny because Yesterday as I was recording, as I said, it took me a long time, and I was still recording when Cameron got home from work. And I had these slippers in here with me, and I was thinking as I could hear him in our bedroom getting changed out of his work clothes, and I thought he's going to be looking for his slippers. So when I came out, I said, "Are you looking for your slippers by any chance?" He's like, "Yes, I was wondering where those were." But if all goes well, so far it's going well, they should be back in our closet before he gets home from work today. So uh, I during my Vlogmas videos, I did sort of document my progress of making these, from the knitting to the felting. And as I mentioned there, I've just do not have as much success with felting with my front loading washing machine as I used to have with my top loading one. They're just not as even, but it still works and they're still serviceable, and Cameron was really happy to get these. He immediately took off his old slippers and put on the new ones, so that's a good thing. Okay, now my first finished project of 2022 are my deep water socks. So this is a pair, I think I started back in November. I picked up this yarn when we went to Victoria to see Cameron's mom around Remembrance Day at Beehive Wool Shop. And this is Zabberball Crazy in colorway 2404, and I think it's something like Tiefwasser. It means deep water, so because I speak English, that's what I'm calling them. It's my deep water socks. I love Zabberball. If you've watched for any amount of time, you know that. And this was such a fun colorway to knit with, all those beautiful jewel tones with the greens and the blues and a little bit of purple here. Again, 64 stitch, 2mm needle, top down, 2x2 rib. This time I did a yarn over short row heel, and I dug around inside the ball and I found the opposite end, and so I knit the heels with the opposite end of the ball in order to preserve the striping on the front of the sock. So again, I'll bring this a little bit closer so you can see. This was the second sock. I know that because I remember knitting this colors. So there, I have actually finished something in 2022, which feels really good. I've also cast on a couple of things. I think I'll talk about my new cast-ons first, and then my older whip. Well, actually, I cast this pair of socks on in 2021, but you haven't seen them because I cast them on after Christmas. This was the Day 25 skein from my Fiber Nymph Dye Works holiday collection, Winter Magical collection. And so this is the bedazzled base, and this colorway is called Winter Shadows. So it looks like this in the skein. And I haven't gone back and looked at my minis. They're in a, I put them all back in their little bags, and they're sitting in the big bag waiting to be used. I'm planning to weave a scarf from them, but there was a colorway, if I remember right. I think one of the days was similar to this in that it had dark gray kind of colors, and then it had a bright spot. Well, I think there were a couple of different days. One I think had a bright spot of gold and another orange. I think it was around the solstice, just the idea of coming out of the dark into the light. And so I'm assuming that's sort of the idea of these two. I think it's really pretty. So it has 5 different colors. This kind of piney green or sprucey green, gold, gray, kind of a charcoaly gray, and then this bright orange. So I had a couple of minis that I considered using on this. I had an orange mini, but it wasn't the bedazzled base, and I had a gold mini that also wasn't bedazzled. But then I also had this dark gray. I think it might have been leftovers from the Blue Jay colorway for the Backyard Birdwatchers Club. In any case, it matched the gray stripe in this very well, and I decided rather than doing a pop of color at the heel, because there were pops of color already throughout the sock, I just went with the more neutral gray, and I really like how it turned out. So maybe I'll slip this on a sock blocker so you might be able to see that heel a little bit better. So again, my go-to 64 stitches, 2mm needle, top down, 2x2 rib. This is just the kind of knitting I like to have for travel or watching TV, things of that nature. So there you go. That gives you a better look at the heel. So I like how that looks. Pretty colors. Again, I'll bring that a little bit closer. You can see the sparkles, which just seemed fitting for this year's holiday collection. So I'm at the same spot on both socks. So I just have to work my way a few more inches down the foot, and then I'll be ready for the toe. So yeah, really loving these so far. I cast them on, I think it was on the 27th. And then I took these with me. We went away over New Year's, and so I worked on these in the car up until I cast on my January Personal Sock Yarn Club yarn. So the skein I chose for that was another Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. Lisa of Fiber Nymph Dye Works is going to be running a make-along starting in March, and I planned out my Personal Sock Yarn Club skeins so that every second month I have a Fiber Nymph Dye Works skein so that I can participate in her make-along also. Although I haven't yet, she has for January and February a like working up your whips, and I just have not got over there yet to post any comments or pictures, but I'm hoping to do that soon. I have just, my January is so far, it's just off to a bit of a slow start, let's say that. So anyway, I am almost finished these socks. This one just needs the toe. So look at this pretty colorway. This is called Winter Play. I can't remember if I said that or not. And I love how well it matches the bag I chose for it. This is a project bag I made for myself a few years ago, and it's just got all the same colors in it. So that was a good match. Again, 2x2 rib, 64 stitches, 2mm needle. This time I did a traditional heel flap and gusset. I did a very slight amount of yarn management. I went ahead and I began the heel with the stripe that followed the gold. And when I went to start working in the round again, picking up the gusset stitches, pardon me, I was going to have a very, very small amount of this starting in this part. So I just broke the yarn off. I think I ended up cutting about that much out and just weaving it in. So it does not carry on with the same striping sequence on the front, but they are, like, full stripes without any, one row of a odd color in there. Yeah, maybe again, I will stick this on a sock blocker. I always think socks kind of show off better that way. By the way, I know sometimes people ask, do I always block my socks? No, I don't. I block my socks the first time I wash them for taking photos, and if I'm going to gift a pair of socks, almost always I block a new pair of socks. But then after that, I don't. I just kind of wash them in a bucket of lukewarm water with some wool wash, and then I spin them out in my washing machine just on a gentle cycle, and then I hang them up on a clothing rack, so a drying rack. So no, I don't use sock blockers all the time, but they do show off a new sock or a sock in progress very well. So there. Not pretty? So again, I'll bring this up closer so you can see, and these are also sparkly. This is the bedazzled base, because I do love me some sparkle. So this one is ready for the toe, and this one just needs about one more stripe, and then it is also ready for the toe. So these got quite a bit more work done on them since yesterday, because I was debating whether or not to try and record again last night, and my husband said, I think you should just sit down, we should go downstairs and just watch some TV, and that was very good advice. We had a nice relaxing evening, and I knit on these, so yeah. And it's a good thing, because I'm definitely feeling a lot more comfortable today and not having to stop and re-record segments. So you're getting a better podcast all around. All right, my final work in progress is my Ashland sweater by Julie Hoover, and this is a Brooklyn tweed pattern. So I started this last, I think it was either late November, early December. I think it was in November. So it looks like this. And there's another more up close picture of it. So it is designed to be knit in a couple of Brooklyn tweed yarns. I don't remember the name of one of them, but the other one is Loft, and that's what I'm knitting it in. I had a sweater's quantity of button jar, which is this beautiful green. And I had knit a sweater out of it before that didn't quite turn out how I liked, and I kept picturing this with other colors. So when I went to Victoria in November, I ended up buying a skein of hayloft and a skein of, I think it was called tartan, which was a bluey green. And if you watched the last couple of regular episodes, you've seen my knitting and unknitting and sampling and swatching to try and find the perfect blend. So what I ended up deciding on were these four colors together. So my main contrast color is the hayloft, but I'm also using the purple, which is thistle, and the orange, which is embers. And after much swatching, I finally came up with a combination of colors and stitch patterns that I liked. And I'm just finished. This is another project that's had a little bit more love since yesterday when I recorded. And I was able to today finish the fourth stitch pattern entirely. So now you can see how all four stitch patterns and color combinations are going to look. This sweater has been gotten off to a rough start. I have knit and unknit parts of this so many times. Not through any fault of the pattern, but mostly through my own fault. Part of it, I do think the pattern could have been a little bit more clear, but I will shoulder the most of the responsibility for it. So, well, one thing I kept doing was forgetting to switch needle sizes when I was going between the colorwork sections and the plain sections. And I'm using a needle that is 1/2 millimeter bigger for the colorwork sections. And so it's a significant enough amount that I really do need to remember to switch out my needles. And I don't know how many times I've gotten a row or two in and then realized I didn't switch, and then I've had to take it back and do it over. Another thing is that when I initially looked at the waist shaping, I decided that I was going to alter it a little bit. If you've watched for a while, you've heard me mention before that I have a long torso, and so generally I need to lengthen the underarm to waist section and sort of shorten the waist to bottom of the sweater section. And so I was going to do that in this case. And then my fault, didn't read forward on the pattern, and then I realized that even though there is a series of decreases for the waist shaping, this sweater is knit from the bottom up, there's only one increase for the bust. So you more or less have an A-lined sweater. So I decided that rather than try and alter those waist decreases and such, I decided I'm just gonna work it the way that it was written. I just think it's easier, and I don't think it's gonna make a whole lot of difference because more or less I'm just gonna end up with an A-shaped sweater anyway. The other thing, and this is where I think the pattern could have been more clear, I can't show you the chart because, you know, obviously it's, you know, copyright, and I just don't want to do that. But I feel like the lines that indicate where you should start knitting for your size could have been made more clear. The writing is very tiny. There are yellow lines that indicate where you have your pattern repeat, but the you don't have any more lines. You just have these little, very small writing. I'm going to show you how small. That I will show you. That's all you have to indicate where to start for your size. So it's very tiny writing, and I made the mistake of picking the wrong line because what I didn't see is it was the line I was supposed to start with for my size for the sleeve, not for the body. And then also you are decreasing, and then therefore when you knit your pattern stitches, you need to start, you know, after you decrease for the first time, you're fine. You start with the one that's indicated because the first decrease starts before the actual color work starts. But after that, then you have to then move that starting point and ending point in one stitch, and then to do it again and again. So when you do get to after your fourth decrease, you are just knitting the pattern repeat, from pattern repeat to pattern repeat. But I messed all that up. So like I said, I have knit and re-knit this so many times, but I think I'm on the right track now. And after all that talk, why don't I show it to you? So here's how it's going so far. So even though I had shown you last time, I think, that I had this part knit, that has been taken back and re-knit too because I started that color work section in the wrong place. But yeah, look how it's coming. So I think, if I remember right, I think I have, oh, I better not say because I don't remember. I know that I have to do, I think 2 and a bit or maybe 3 more colorwork sections before I divide for the sleeves. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. I have it all kind of written out in my notebook and I'll know what to do when I get there. So I'm going to bring this closer so that you can see the various colorwork patterns. So there is that one. You can also see, I think, the yarn, that it's not just, you know, solid green or solid gold. There are definitely flecks of other colors in there, which make that yarn really fun, really special. There's that section. And then I added the orange in here and just did little pops of purple through that middle row just to tie things together. And then there's the final pattern there. I was looking at it today and kind of wondering if I should have done this one in orange, but I'm not changing my mind now. And I think I'm happier. Well, I know I like the gold better, so I think there's just enough orange in there. It's repeated enough times that it doesn't stand out as a color that doesn't belong. And I think the gold ties all of the colorwork patterns together. So yeah, happy with that. I think it's gonna be pretty big. That was the other thing when I picked my size. The smallest size was gonna be very close fitting, and I didn't want it that close fitting, but the neck size jumps like about 4 inches. So I knew it'd be a little bit looser than how I often like to wear a sweater, but I also looked at the style and thought that it suited a little bit looser. Then I realized when it dawned on me about the decreasing and how little increasing you do after the waist shaping, I realized it's going to be pretty big around the bottom. But it is what it is, and I think I will like it anyway. I really hope I do. That's the one downside of knitting. You can't really try it on before like you can in the store, but I do like how it is turning out so far, and I am enjoying knitting. Well, I'm enjoying working on it in so much as it's fun to see the growth, and I do enjoy the fact that the colorwork sections are just short, and then you've got a stretch of plain knitting in between. The only thing I don't really like about it is that this Brooklyn Tweed Loft doesn't have much spring to it, so it's not as quick and easy a knit as some other yarns that have more stretch. It's pretty unforgiving, and so it just doesn't have that same rhythm when you knit. It's like a little bit more effort, if you will. But I do like the knitted product, and so it's worth it. So as I mentioned, I've been doing some quilting and sewing. One thing, I'm just gonna move a couple things around here. If you watched Vlogmas, you will have seen that on Christmas Eve, I found some time on my hands and I decided to sew up a table runner for our Christmas table. This was something I had wanted to do all of December. I actually wanted to do 2 table runners and some placemats in addition to my tree skirt. And I just didn't have time. And then Christmas Eve just ended up with a block of time, and I thought, that's how I'm going to spend the day. And so I did show it in just a quick photo on my last Vlogmas episode, but I'll give you a little bit closer look here. So I used the same fabrics that I used for the tree skirt. That's the Morris Holiday from Moda. And I'm going to put this over my face so you can see it better. I found this pattern on a, I think it was a Missouri Star Quilt Company video tutorial, and kind of played around with the placement of the yarns. It's supposed to be a scrappy table runner. In retrospect, I was thinking maybe it would have been nice if I'd done blue, blue, green, green, red, red, dark, dark, but I didn't, and that's okay. I like it anyway. And I used, for the main color and for the backing, I used the same backing fabric that I used for the tree skirt. So that sat on our Christmas table with a red tablecloth, and then Cameron had brought home a red vase with some flowers in it. He said he thought it would look nice on the table, and I hadn't really thought about a centerpiece, so it did look really nice. And then I put a couple of candles there, and that gave us a little bit of excitement on Christmas Day. So we'd had dinner, and we were sitting around the table after dinner. It had snowed that day, and it was kind of windy, and we had put a cooler on the back porch with beer and wine in it because our fridge was so full, and we've got the nature's fridge outside. And one of our sons opened up the sliding door that's adjacent to the kitchen table, and the wind blew in, and it picked up one of the paper hats from the Christmas crackers and right into the candle. And so just like that, we had this paper hat was on fire. Thankfully, just as quickly, we were able to extinguish the fire, but that gave us a little more excitement than we needed. So on here is a little bit of a souvenir from that. There's a little bit of, I don't know if you'll be able to see it right here. A little bit of ash from that. So before I put this away, I need to see if I can just wash that out. I don't want to wash the whole thing because the rest of it's fine. And I like how it looks kind of all flat like this for now. But yeah, that was more excitement than we needed, put it that way. So if you were watching Vlogmas, you knew that I was anxiously awaiting a box from Connecting Threads because it had the tree skirt batting kit in it. Another thing it had in it were was a charm pack, and I wanted to use that to make a project bag for my daughter for Christmas. And I just ran out of time and gave myself permission to just say, your rest of your presents coming later. And so I decided to tackle that this week, and I was inspired to do that by another video tutorial that I saw on YouTube from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. It's kind of a mouthful. And it was for a tote bag that you could make out of charm packs. And so that's what I did. And so the tutorial said you would have enough squares in a charm pack to do 3 bags. So I decided to go ahead and do 3 of them right away, and went and picked up some coordinating fabric and some batting. And I used that tutorial and I combined it with aspects of another tutorial that was from Shabby Fabrics for a different style tote bag, but they're pretty similar. So yeah, I took some things from one and some things from another. I laughed. I was telling my husband that I think it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. She was very loosey-goosey about, not pinning things and not being too fussed about matching things up and such. And I don't know the woman's name from the Shabby Fabrics tutorial, but she's very meticulous and she pins and pins. And I'm kind of fall in between depending on what it is I'm doing. I want things to match up and stuff, but I don't necessarily pin it as much as that other woman does. But I definitely am more careful than Jenny. In any case, they turned out pretty well. So this is the one I chose that I made with Jessica in mind, but I'm actually going to show her all 3 and let her pick the one that she wants for herself, and then the other two will be prizes for the Year of the Stash make-along. So this is the one did for her. So I used some fancy stitches to do the quilting on this part. I put it along, I can't see, put it along the edge here, and then I also did it on the handles. And then I just lined it in white. So one of the things for the tutorial, they just had you use batting, but the tutorial for the Shabby Fabrics one had you use fusible fleece, and our fabric store here happened to have like a big sale on. It was like buy one get one free, so I ended up buying 4 meters of the fusible fleece, and I think it's nice. It's more stable, and you know, I guess in theory I could just use some spray adhesive with the batting, but I just like the way the fusible fleece works, so I'm glad I got some. So it's got owls and moths, kind of forest, ferns, moons. These are all things Jess loves. I'm not so sure about the moths, but I know all the forest things, which is why I bought this fabric in the first place. This one I think has acorns. Yeah, it's got acorns on it. Leaves. Anyway, so I'm really happy with how that turned out. So that's the one that I did with her in mind, but I'm going to let her choose. They're all similar. They're just different combinations of the fabrics, and you know, they're all in different colors. There. So this one I just did X's for the quilting, and then I also just did horizontal lines on the bottom, and did the straps like that, and then this one I did like vertical quilting. So I just played around to see, you know, just make them all just a little bit different. And then at the same time, I had this leftovers of an older charm pack. So I ended up doing 2 more bags with that. So I used this one. So this one you can see I did the quilting like that. And then this one, I just did the vertical quilting again. So again, these will be prizes, most likely be prizes for the Year of the Stash, unless I, you know, end up gifting one to somebody for whatever reason. So then I had shown you some fabric that I picked up, or maybe I can't remember if I showed it last regular episode or just during Vlogmas, but I had picked up some fabrics in the quilt shop on Granville Island in Vancouver over Vlogmas in December, and with the idea in mind that I would make some bags out of them, also for prizes. But one of the prints I just really loved and wanted to keep for myself, and as it turned out, because it's a one-way print, it wasn't going to work for the other bag anyway, and so I used the bags I just showed you kind of as a guide, and did this one for myself. I don't know why, I just love that kind of whimsical print. And then I paired it up with one of the coordinating fabrics. I had bought like a fat quarter bundle, so I used that one for the bottom and for the straps, and then I used this one for the lining. And I couldn't, this one I had to piece the lining anyway because of just because it wouldn't work with the way I had to cut this fabric and the way that you use these fat quarters from the Shabby Fabrics tutorial. It has you cutting them that it would be on this direction. Of course, that would look silly to have that sideways on here. So that's why I kind of had to improvise a little bit. So anyway, I'm keeping this one for myself, and you can see on this one I did like sort of diamond quilting design, and that's what they did on the Shabby Fabrics one. So I just kind of took aspects of both and combined them. So yeah, so now I have a new tote bag for myself. All right, I think that is it for all the crafting stuff. I only have one acquisition to share with you, and this was a gift. Well, I did get a gift certificate for one of our local yarn shops to use to buy yarn to match my Winter Magical collection for weaving. I haven't gone shopping for that yet, but in addition to that, one of the things I'd asked for from my brother-in-law, he had my name for Christmas. I wanted a wavy shuttle from Ashland. So you can see there's two different waves. That one's a little more closely spaced, and then this one's less so. And you can use them in a couple different ways. One, you can actually use it as a shuttle and both put your yarn through the warp and beat it with this shuttle, or you can have a regular shuttle and then just use this to beat your warp, or your weft, I should say. That's when you draw if you put the shuttle through and you line up your yarn and then you bring it towards yourself to put it into place, you will use this and it will create a wave pattern. And you can even do this one for a bit and then you can do something else and then you can use this one. I was watching a couple of videos, so I'm gonna have to play with it. I haven't used it yet. One of my concerns is that I think, especially depending on what kind of yarn you use, if you wash your item or soak it afterwards, the waves won't necessarily stay in place. So I'm gonna have to be you know, aware of that and try out a few different things. I think the stickier your yarn, the more likely it is that it'll stay in place, because I really do like to soak my weaving projects after I've done them. I have found from experience that when you're making scarves, which is mostly what I'm doing, that it does soften them up and make them a little bit more drapey, and also kind of makes the yarn bloom and fill in any holes you have from the weaving. So I'm gonna have to play, but I'm looking forward to that. And then the other part of his gift to me, which hasn't arrived yet, is a fringe twister from Ashland. And I'm looking forward to that because doing it by hand is quite a bit of work. And I know it's still gonna be work, but a little bit less so. I can just turn a handle instead of turning all the things on my own. So looking forward to that for sure. Just gonna take a sip here. My tea is getting cold. I didn't think about putting it in my insulated cup this time, so I'm paying the price for that. Actually, I think what I'm gonna do is just pause here and go warm that up anyway, and then I'll be back just to give you a brief update on what's been going on with me since mid-December. So I hope all of you had a good holiday season. We did. It was a lot quieter this year than usual. Because of COVID restrictions, we didn't have our big extended family gathering like we'd been planning. But at least we weren't eating Christmas dinner all by ourselves like last year. We did have Christmas Eve on our own though. We had planned to have our daughter's family over, and then plans changed. And so we ended up just the two of us for Christmas Eve, but it was actually a really nice evening. I had made this seafood chowder that we both really like, and some, I think we did, oh, I know what happened. Our neighbor had come by with some freshly baked buns. Cameron had helped her shovel her driveway, I think the week before that, and she came over with that for us. So I was gonna make cheese biscuits, and we ended up just having these nice fresh rolls. We had planned to have them on Christmas Day, and then we thought, no, we're gonna keep them for ourselves. And our son was planning to make Yorkshire pudding anyway. So yes, Yorkshire pudding with turkey. It's a family thing we inherited from our son-in-law. So anyway, we enjoyed those nice rolls over the course of a week or so. They tasted great with leftover turkey in them. Anyway, so yeah, we just had a nice Christmas Eve, and that signaled the beginning of my husband's holidays. So it was nice that evening. He got home from work, and then he could just go and know that he didn't have to go to work for about a week and a half. So then Christmas morning, our two sons and daughter-in-law came over to open presents with us. That's a tradition we've had with them for a long time. Well, with the two boys anyway, and then now that Stephanie's part of the family, she's come the last 2 or 3 years also. So that was really good. And then they went home for a little while and then came back for dinner, and Stephanie's parents also joined us for dinner. So it was nice to make, more people around the table. And Matt and Steph had celebrated Christmas with Stephanie's family on Christmas Eve. That's their tradition, and stayed over. And so her parents didn't have any plans for dinner, and I had already invited them when I learned that, and so it worked out really well. We had a white Christmas this year. It actually worked out really well because the snow didn't start, I think, until late in the evening Christmas Eve. And so our daughter's family was traveling about 40 minutes away by highway Christmas Eve, and so their travel was fine. So I was glad about that. And then we had snow overnight and probably about half the day, but by the time people were moving around, the plows had been out and the snow was diminishing, and so it really didn't interfere with any Christmas plans, which was nice. So then Boxing Day, we had our whole family over except for our daughter. She had a cold, still was a bit symptomatic, and just thought it best that she stayed home that night. But we were also joined by Stephanie's best friend. She actually works with Jessica too, and she's kind of become a little bit of an extension of our family. Got to know her at the wedding and in the course of months leading up to the wedding. So she's just sort of an extension of Matt and Stephanie's family, and so we've kind of embraced her too. So that was a really nice casual get together. We just did appetizers. Everyone brought a couple of things to share, and that's when we exchanged gifts with Jessica's family. And the highlight of probably my Christmas was watching our younger granddaughter open her presents. She just turned 7. Actually, her birthday was on December 30th, so she had Christmas and birthday presents to open from us. And she's just at that age where the joy is so pure and genuine, the excitement. I mean, she literally was giggling in anticipation, and I just had so much fun watching her. She reminded me of our daughter at about that age, and there was one year in particular that my brother-in-law just got such a kick out of her for the same reasons, that it was just this genuine excitement, and you couldn't help but, catch that sense of excitement. So that was a really fun night. And then we just spent, I guess, the next couple of days kind of chilling and prepping for a little getaway. So the plan was to go to Vancouver Island on December 30th. to go see Cameron's mom, who's in an extended care home, and to spend a night with his brother-in-law and his wife that live close by, and then to go up island a few hours to spend a night with Cameron's other brother and his wife. And then we had booked 3 nights at a oceanside resort where we stayed a few years ago, just as a little getaway on our own. And I was really apprehensive about it as time was drawing closer. Our restrictions had been increased because of Omicron, and the guidance was to keep things small and not to see too many people. And also we had a lot of wintry weather over the course of that week, snow, and we ended up having freezing rain and more snow and wind while we were away. So looking at all of that, and I was kind of nervous about going. I was really worried about potentially catching the virus and spreading it to other people, especially Cam's mom. But then we kind of looked at it. We'd kept, our numbers were relatively small. We knew who we were seeing over the holidays, and people who were extra that came to our house, we wore masks and just tried to maintain as much distance as we could as a precaution. And so we figured too, because Omicron it seems to present symptoms much earlier than the previous variants. We thought by the time we left for the island, we would know whether someone at our, that we had spent time with was sick, or if we were showing symptoms ourselves. So as it turned out, we felt fine. Everyone around us was fine. So we decided to go for it. And so that's what we did. We had already planned on the ferry that we weren't going to get out and go upstairs and mingle with a bunch of strangers. We just stayed in our car the whole time. You're allowed to do that if you're on certain decks of the ferry. If you're on the very bottom, you're not allowed to. But if we were on the upper deck, so we just did that. I was nervous about the weather. We had snow the night before we left, and the roads driving to the ferry were not very good, but we made it fine. And I'm glad I suggested that we throw a couple of blankets in the car and some water, and we already had a bunch of food because we were having a few nights on our own in a place with a kitchenette. So just thought if something goes wrong, at least we'll be warm and have something to eat and drink. And as it turned out, it was cold on the ferry, so we had both ended up bundling up in the blankets while we were, passing the time. It's about, I think about an hour and 35, hour and 40-minute crossing, but you're also, in the ferry for a while before you take off, and then you're waiting your turn to get off. So it's close to a couple hours that you're there. So yeah, we did go see Cam's mom, and then as it turned out, the next day they announced new restrictions for visiting people in care homes, and as of the following day, we wouldn't have been able to see her. And even now, they've gone back to allowing only one essential visitor per resident, and that is Cameron's brother, who lives close by. So we were lucky to have a chance to see her, and we enjoyed our visits with Cameron's brothers, and then we were on our own, and it was just really nice. It was not nearly long enough. I kept saying, "Are you sure you couldn't take another day or two off?" And I was kind of like looking at what it might cost us to stay an extra night or two. In a way, it's a good thing we left when we did, because the weather turned really ugly after that. As it was, we had wind and snow and freezing rain. The morning we left, the streets around where we were staying were really, really icy. And then we, again, took the ferry and just stayed in our car, got off on the other side. It was coming down. The snow was coming down like crazy. Snowed halfway home. And then the snow hit us later that night. And then we ended up with a really bad freezing rain episode. Everything was just a sheet of ice all on top of the snow that was already there. The tree in our front yard, a couple of branches broke off, a few others have snapped but not fallen, so I think we're going to have to replace that tree. Everything else fared okay though. And then for the past couple days, we've had like pouring rain, and like I said earlier, this weird snow fog. Today's just overcast. Still a lot of snow around. We're not used to having snow on the ground that lasts for weeks the way we have this year. Now it's all kind of dirty and icky looking, but it was pretty to begin with. And I do like snow as long as I don't personally have to drive in it. So I have enjoyed some of the winter weather. One plus side is that it has been cold, and I've been able to wear my hand knit sweaters a lot this year, which often I don't. They're just too warm for in the house. But like I've been wearing this, and it's just fine. So it's nice to be able to wear those. Yeah, so while we were on holidays, we both got texts from the government to say we could book our booster shots. And so we ended up booking them for Friday afternoon, last Friday. And that way, if we weren't feeling well, then especially for Cameron, who has to work outside the home, you know, he would, if he had any ill effects, then he would be okay. And he's just sailed through both of his prior shots. Mine, did not do well the first shot. I had a really sore, stiff arm the second, but otherwise felt pretty good. This time, both of us felt kind of under the weather. So, yeah, the weekend, we didn't do very much. We had planned to take all our Christmas decorations down, our tree. They are still up. We're planning to do that this weekend instead. I just feel like we're both feeling fine now as far as our health goes. So glad to have gotten our boosters. But yeah, I just did not feel really, really well. Kind of dragged our heels for a couple of days. And our arms both had really tender arms. And I'm just finding, I think part of it is having been away for the first week of the month and then trying to play catch up since I got home. You know, had a ton of laundry to do the first day, and then not feeling so well for a couple days, and just, yeah, I just don't feel like my New Year's off to a rousing start. It'll get there. I've been watching some, or seeing them pop up, whether I watch them or not, various knitting podcasts with, you know, what I did in 2021 and what I'm going to do for 2022. And I haven't even thought about that other than trying to finish up a few of my works in progress. I know I'm behind on some podcast correspondence, so I apologize for that if you're one of the people who I owe a note to. Yeah, I'm just feeling like I'm not where I want to be, considering we're coming up to mid-month. But I'll get there. Just might take me a little bit longer this year. So I think that takes care of everything in my notes except for something good. So as I mentioned, we exchanged gifts with our daughter's family on Boxing Day. So they had given us a box of assorted items, and one of the things was I pulled this out and said, oh nice, some dishcloths. And I had assumed that my daughter had knit them, so I took them out and said, oh lovely, some dishcloths, and I put them down and went on to the next thing. And then a short time later, my son-in-law said, you should unfold the dishcloths, take a closer look, they're all different. So, so as I, start unfolding them, I learned that he had actually knit them. So unbeknownst to me, in about mid-November, I guess one night he was bored, and I think Jessica had taught him how to knit before, but he hadn't really taken to it. So he said, yeah, do you want to teach me how to knit? And so this is the first thing he knit, was this dishcloth. And then he did this one, I think. That was the second one. And then he did this one. And I guess he got bored with dishcloth, so she showed him how to knit a hat. So he showed me the hat he'd knit. And then now he's, well, last time I talked to him, which he's probably moved on since then, but then he was working on another dishcloth with cables this time. But I was just so impressed. I mean, the tension, like looking at his hat, it just looked like someone who'd been knitting forever. He is doing so well. I was super impressed with his knitting skills. And apparently she only had to show him how to cast on once and bind off once, and he's well on his way. So a couple days later he friended me on Ravelry. So I just think that's really cool. So now both my daughter-in-law and my son-in-law are knitters. Can never have too many knitters in the family. As he said, now you have someone else to buy yarn for, which is true. Speaking of which, my daughter-in-law was really happy with her Christmas presents, which was an assortment of some yarn and knitting tools. And she's finished her cowl, and I think she wants to do a hat next. So anyway, that was a very cool surprise, and definitely my something good to have another knitter in the family. On that note, I think we've come to the end of the first episode of the new year. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. If you are taking part in the Year of the Stash, welcome and thank you for joining in. You can join in anytime. Just head on over to the Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group and read post number 1 of the various threads, and you'll get a sense of what this make-along is all about. And by all means, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I hope you have a safe and healthy and happy new year. I wish you all the best, and I hope to be back with you again next week. So take care until then. Bye now.